Hi, I'm Paul, teacher with Cloud English, and today I want to talk about the difference between a city and a town, which I understand can be a little bit confusing to understand, especially if you haven't been to an American city or maybe an American town. So let's take a look and see exactly sort of what the difference between a city and a town is. So I first want to look at a city. So I've opened up Google Maps here, and I just want to point out a few things. Okay, so let's zoom out just a little bit. Okay, and notice all of the very large buildings. That's always the first thing that catches my eye, right? So we have a couple of large buildings here. We've got several large buildings here, right? So 3, 4, a lot of areas of large buildings. Now let's zoom out a little bit more and look at all of the area that is nothing but what looks like cement and concrete and buildings. Okay? So this whole area right here and even farther out is nothing but what looks like buildings. Okay? And so that is the first indication of exactly what a city looks like. All right? So you'll notice if we go a little farther out, we see more green space, right? See lots and lots of green. Okay? So we are outside of the city at that point. These would be what are called suburbs. Okay? And we'll get into those a little bit later. All right, but first, let's actually take a little bit closer look at what the city looks like when we are on the street. So I'm actually going to go down to the street level here in Google Maps, which is a really, really cool feature, I think. Hopefully, okay, there we go. So now we can sort of see these really tall buildings, right? We're right underneath them, we're right beside them. So we are in downtown Columbus right now. And again, let's take note of what we see. I'm going to point out the buildings once again. Building here, right? Let's see. I see a little bit of green right in here, which is nice. But it looks very busy, okay? We have a lot of cars. It looks very sort of closed in, right? It looks like everything is towering above you. There's an old church here. But it's very, very what we would call populated. All right, so let's go back to our notes and note what we have seen so far. Okay, so we have large buildings. Okay, definitely something to look for. Okay, we have busy traffic. Okay. And we also have what else did we see? We also have what looks like a lot of congestion. Okay, so not much room to move. Okay, everything is sort of close together. That's what I mean by congestion. Okay, and also highly populated. Okay, highly populated. And also business. Okay, most of the skyscrapers that we see are business buildings, right? Banks, things like that. Okay, so a lot of business, a lot of high traffic areas, not much what we would call residential. Now, some of these buildings may be apartments. This one probably not. Maybe this building could be an apartment building, so people might live here. But you don't really see any houses, right? So cities, a lot of people live, hundreds of thousands of people, live in cities, and millions in cities like New York, or tens of thousands of cities, of people live in cities and smaller cities. But you'll notice there's not a ton of housing. Okay, so that's really sort of the main differences is size. Remember, if we exit the street view, and again we look at the size, just how big this city is, and how much of it is just all pavement, right? Look at that. That is the heart of the city. That's really sort of the main difference. I mentioned suburbs before. Now these are a part of the Columbus city, but they're a little bit different. These are full of neighborhoods. All right, so maybe I can drop down on a street here. I don't know this street, but I'm just going to drop in and see what it looks like, and if we can take a look at a neighborhood. All right, so yeah, this is a great example of a suburb neighborhood. All right. You see nice houses. You see a lot of green trees. Okay, this is what would be a typical American suburb. Okay, looks very, very nice. So let's go back here and let's create a new little slide page. All right, so outside of the city, we have suburban areas, or we would also call these suburbs. All right, we have lots of greenery. We have lots of houses. Okay, so much less congested. But a lot of these people that live in this nice little suburb, I'm sure probably work in the city, so they have to live around the city. So if we exit the street view here and we zoom way out again like we did before, look at all these houses. These houses, I mean, it's crazy the amount of people, right? So a lot of these people, or a majority of these people, I'm sure work right here in the city. So which is small in comparison to all of the different houses that surround it. Okay? Really, really crazy. All right, so what is then the difference between a town and a city? So let's look at a town near Columbus. Let's look at Delaware. Okay, if we can find Delaware. All right, Delaware, you should be able to see the city center or the town center pretty well. Okay, so you definitely see the difference. Much less populated. All right, you see the town center right in here, but it is not nearly as large as what Columbus was, right? Yeah, there's definitely a lot of buildings in this little area right in here, but nothing in compared to what we saw in Columbus. All right, so let's take a little closer look and see what the buildings are like in comparison to Columbus. All right, so I'm just gonna let's drop down in the middle of town, okay, and see what we can see. All right, so I'm in the middle of Delaware, and look at the size difference of these buildings, right? We have just 1, 2, 3-story buildings, where in Columbus, we had 20, 30, 40-story buildings. I don't even know, but very, very large buildings. And we also have a lot more greenery. It is less traffic, right? There's definitely some traffic. This is right in the downtown area, but much less than what you would see in downtown Columbus. All right, so you can see the town stretches out. And what about the houses around around Delaware? What do those look like? So I'm going to exit Street View, and let's zoom out a little bit and see if it's as big as the housing around Columbus. So yeah, I mean we've got a pretty substantial amount of people. But definitely not as many people surrounding Columbus, right? Pretty good number though. And so let's drop in on one of these streets and get a street view of what these look like. I wonder if they are any different than the suburbs of Columbus. Right? Probably not. Okay, so yeah, they're pretty similar looking little town, right? Pretty nice. This would still be considered Delaware, right? It is outside of the main city or the main center of Delaware, but we still consider it Delaware. So yeah, you can see outside of town very similar, inside of town much different than a large city. Okay, so let's take some notes. All right, outside of city, this was the town that we looked at right outside of Columbus. So let's look at a town, right? So much smaller buildings. Okay, so let's write that down. small buildings. Let's see, it wasn't as crowded, right? So let's say not overpopulated. Okay, yeah, and not as large of a surrounding housing area. So let me just take a moment to write that there. Again, sorry for my sloppy handwriting. It's sort of difficult to write with this. Okay, so there's a few notes on a town. All right, major small building. We could also say that we have a smaller population, right? So less people live in this specific town than they do in a city. But I will say that more people, broadly speaking, so if we put all the towns together in the United States and we put all of the cities together in the United States, most people do live outside of cities, right? Not many people actually live in the center of the city. Because of what we looked at when we saw Columbus. There was some apartments, but there really were not, many houses downtown. Most people, again, live outside of the cities, in the suburbs that we saw, in the town that we looked at in Delaware, and in the little neighborhoods that we sort of took a look at that you can see here. So most people in America live in areas like this. Some live very, very far away from towns and cities. I've shown you both in Ohio, which is the Northwest, which is a lot different than out west in America. So I hope that this has helped you understand the difference between a city and a town. And if you have any questions, please contact me on WeChat. I would be happy to answer any of your questions. Just find me at lukepriddy. Okay? And thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. And I look forward to hearing from you soon.